Hello, listeners. Welcome to yet another expository and insightful episode of our program series, Policy Formulation and Economic Development on Amogate Radio Communication. I am your host, Titilola Ogushono. Today, we'll be discussing in details the process of public policy formulation. On previous episode, we have established that public policy is the framework of laws, regulations, and actions that government deploys to achieve stated social and economic goals. That is the definition according to O.J. Jindal Global. So the unique nature of public policy that we have discussed is that it is a deliberate and systematic approach to address crucial issues that affect the society, which could actually be social, economic, political, or cultural in nature. Also discuss some distinct features of public policy, and the first that we said is that public policy must be purpose-oriented. It's usually formulated to solve or address specific challenges or issues in an economy. It could be unemployment rates, it could be high level poverty rates in the economy. It could be environmental pollution relating to even issues related to security in the society. So we said the first distinct feature of public policy is that it is purpose oriented. We equally mentioned that it's systematic. The process of formulating public policy would entail a lot of stakeholders' engagement, identifying them, communicating the reason for the policy to them, a whole lot of processes. So we've established also that it is systematic, and definitely any public policy enacted, formulated, it's said to be strategic. It's strategic because that element strategic implies that it is long-term oriented. So let's consider the stages of public policy formulation, or what we said the process of public policy formulation. I'll start with the first stage, and that is problem identification or agenda setting. I would say this is the bedrock, this is the foundation, and this is the first step in making sound policies. And that is proper identification of the problem. You need to be able to, know what the exact problem is. Remember, when you talk about economic development, you are talking about improvement in the value of life of your citizens. Definitely, it goes beyond just economic growth. Yes, you are increasing in terms of value of goods and services, but we are looking at the quality of life of your people. So, if you want to achieve economic development in a particular nation, you need to look at your policies that would enable you to achieve that. And we talked about sustainable economic development. That is even achieving economic development, for the present generation without sacrificing economic development for future generations. So there's a need for us to, keep reviewing these policies. So we need to sit as policymakers. The first step that any policymaker would consider is to identify what exactly is the problem. That issues, that would, debar prevent a nation for achieving set, economic development goals. So this stage is very crucial. I call this stage, again, is always called the filter stage. This is a stage where the policymakers would, look into it to address if there's a particular issue, and the issue could be diverse. It could be political in nature, is it economic in nature, is it environmental in nature. You need to analyze and look at these issues critically. And as simple as it might sound, this is the bedrock. Like I said, this is very crucial, this is very paramount, and that is the major step, of making sound public policies. Because even as policymakers, this is the stage where you look at trends, what has been happening in the last 5 years, what has been happening in the last 10 years, which of these issues have been, happening repeatedly, which of these issues, should we concentrate our efforts, our resources towards as a nation. So policymakers will be looking at which of these trends needs special attention. That this is stage where, that's why I call it the filter stage, where you are looking at all of these issues. Is it an unemployment issue, security issue, environmental hazards? You keep looking at all of the literacy, issues. Is it even health issues? Okay, these are the stage. This is a stage where you keep looking at all of these issues, and there are strategies in analyzing which of these issues should be prioritized. So at this point, when you go through this, we expect that this is the stage where you can now capture the problem adequately. Yes, you have identified what the problem is. It's unemployment rate. It like I said, is it climate change issues? Is it environmental issues? You have identified, okay, yes, this is what the challenge is. Then now if you have identified, you need to capture the problem adequately. Now, you cannot capture the problem adequately if you do not have a thorough understanding of what the problem is. The thorough understanding of the challenge would require a lot of thinking, a lot of investigation, okay? Now, what is the thinking about this problem? If the issue is unemployment rate, what's the thinking around it? If it's climate change issues, how do we conceptualize? What is the magnitude, of the problem? And you can only get this by taking data. That's why at this point is where I even call the data collection stage. You filter through, then you even need to even get data to even know which of these issues, should you prioritize. It shouldn't be dependent on your gut feelings as a policymaker. Rather, it should be evidence-based. So you need to gather data around the challenge. So if the challenge, for instance, is low per capita income, your low per capita income speaks to the standard of living of your people. So if we have a lot of people, the PCI is very low, this is the issue. So we want to gather data around it, okay? So that I can really, know the extent, the magnitude of the problem. So what you'll be asking yourselves, who are the stakeholders, okay? So if you are talking about low per capita income, definitely you are looking at the employers of labor, okay? So you are looking at issues around minimum wage. You are looking at issues around inflationary pressure. So you are looking at the stakeholders. Who are those that you need to engage? Okay, who do you engage? What the issues are. You can't tell me as an entrepreneur to increase, salaries if I'm going to be grappling with high level of taxes, or even the issue of multiple taxes, as the case may be. So you might want to look at it, and you can't even tell me to increase salaries of my employees if I am not getting funds from my banks at a reduced interest rate. So these are issues. You need to know who the stakeholders are, what are their issues around it. So that is in the case of saying if the issue is low per capita income, people are not earning. Okay, yes, we could look at, is it that we need to increase wages, minimum wages, or do you want to look at issues of encouraging, real investment, the real sector in the economy, now giving out grants, maybe tax holidays? You need to, this is when you need to identify, get your data, collect your data, know who your stakeholders are. And how do you know who your stakeholders are? Like I said, you're going to be asking yourself, I'm going to come up with any policy, as a policy maker, as a government of a nation, we're going to come up with any policy. Who are those that are likely to be mostly affected by this policy? They're your stakeholders. So you need to, proactively, articulate who they are, what their challenges are. That's why I said that coming up with policies, it has to be evidence driven. You need to collect data. You need to carry out surveys, interviews with them, to know what the issues really are. Okay? In addition to even knowing who they are, you need to even know who the power brokers are. Okay, they're influencers. That's some policies when you come up with, it will be dead on arrival, because you're going to have issues at the implementation stage. So I will say that the first one, this is very basic, is that when you are able to articulate what the problem is before you set out an agenda. I said the first stage is problem identification and agenda setting. So before to setting up the agenda, you have articulated what the problem is, you have collected data. Now you are going forward to say, okay, what's the agenda? What will be the objective? Then you are getting, engaging. You are looking at the stakeholders. Who are those that will be mostly affected? You're already articulating all of those things. Looking at this now brings you to what will be the objective. What do you seek to achieve. And what you seek to achieve is very important because it talks about clarity. You need to be clear. Do I want to, the example I stated, I want to increase my per capita income is very low with about 10%, 15%. So I'm clear about it. Okay. Now, yes, we know that definitely there have been policies in existence. It's not in all circumstances they have to enact new public policies. Now, but it takes you back to the existing policies. Is that a need to review? Okay, so by what percentage are you reviewing? And then some element of the policies that should be taken out, and then new things that should be amended, should be brought in. You need to be clear about what you seek to achieve. It's funny, sometimes people think that's actually a problem, and that may not be a problem. So as a policy maker, your data will help you, find out, is there really a problem? Okay, and when you know that there's really a problem, your data as a policy analyst will help you know, can it be resolved? And if it's going to be resolved, what are the resources that you need, that you're going to be needing to resolve this challenge or this problem? And it's going to be peculiar. When we talk about resources, what are the people that you need? What are the processes that we need? What are the structures that you need? Do you have the right infrastructure, to solve this issue on ground? This is the stage that I call the filter stage. I call it the bedrock. I call it the building block, which is very important. If you have done your problem identification well, and you are able to set up an agenda in terms of your policy objective, then it's not likely to fail. And and another advantage to proper capturing of the problem, set up agenda, is that you are going to understand the nature of the challenge. There are going to be various challenges, okay? But I call some, there's some that we talk about the spiral effects. Okay, so there are some that is the main cause, the cause and root approach. So you look at it. What is the main cause? You understand the peculiar nature of the challenge. What would help you? You're not asking yourself, can this be addressed by legislation? Okay, understanding it will help you know that, okay, what laws can I work with my laws to address this. Still on problem identification and agenda setting. Now, why is problem identification very crucial? Why is it important? It's important, it's crucial to identify properly what the problem is in an economy when it comes to public policy formulation, because you need to clearly differentiate between the problem, its outcomes, and its symptoms. Okay, you need to differentiate between the problem itself, the problem of the challenge, or the outcomes and its symptoms. They are different things, because ability to be able to determine what the problem is, differently from the various forms of outcomes or symptoms, would assist policy makers to take proper decisions. What do I mean? An example is this. High level of inflationary pressure in the economy. As economists, we have different types of, different types of inflation. You have the cost push, demand pull, inflation, the creeping according to movement, the walking, the hyperinflation. Now let's look at even galloping. So let's look at the worst case scenario. We don't want, any nation doesn't want to be at that stage. It's when we have gallop hyperinflation. When it's hyper, when inflationary pressure is over 50 to about 100%, it makes the currency actually worthless if it's not well managed. So when we have high level of inflationary pressure in the economy, and it's like 100%, for instance, 80%. Okay, now what you will see as the symptoms of that, or even the outcomes of that high inflationary pressure, what will happen is that, one, you see that it's going to lead to low level of purchasing power, because what your currency can buy, what your money can buy, you cannot purchase what you used to buy. Okay, so you have your currency, your present salary, purchasing fewer goods. Like you are experiencing it globally, and it's more, it's beating hard in developing countries right now, the inflationary pressure. Okay, now when you have that, one of the symptoms of inflationary pressure, like I said, is that it's going to reduce the purchasing power. And when purchasing power reduces, definitely that people, malnutrition is not going to be far-fetched. People are talking about survival, let alone balanced diet. Nobody will be thinking of balanced diet. So you're talking about high level of malnutrition among children. Now, what is going to happen when people are hungry? I'm not sure that when you're going to prioritize education. So literacy rate is likely to be affected. And when people, and we always say that when your income is high, then you can save. When you can save, then it becomes the basis, in the capital stock for investment. So when people, like we said, from inflation, okay, see what's happening, malnutrition, see what we're talking about to literacy rates, is going to affect the level of investment, and it's going to affect production. And what does happens again? When you are not even investing, we are not producing, are you going to be able to employ more? It's going to add to your level of unemployment rate in the economy. So look at all of the kind of multiplier effect is going to have, adverse effect is going to have on the economy. So if we are coming up with any policy, now are you going to say the problem is malnutrition? Are you going to say that the problem you are going to face is literacy rates? Are you saying that the problem is no investment? No, the root cause where proper capturing of the problem is going to boil down, majorly on your high level of inflationary pressure in the economy. So that's where it's done. You need to analyze what are the symptoms of a particular problem. What are the causes? The root cause is what you do, not the symptoms, not the outcomes. So if you can capture, that's an example of how you capture effectively what the root cause is. So capturing inflationary pressure. Now looking at the best measures. We've always said that various measures, you can look at the fiscal measure using the tools of your taxes and government expenditure to curb inflationary pressure in the economy. You can also look at also our monetary policies, your MPR rate and the likes of that, to curb it. The treasury bills, your OMO, your open market, the securities, open market operations, securities by the government. There are a lot of policies, tools that we can use to deploy as economists to curb inflationary pressure. So you see that coming up with now those policies, once you are able to identify what the problem is, in this case inflationary pressure, because it's going to lead to have a lot of spiral effects on the economy, multiplier effect. So identifying it, getting data to validate what you see as the problem is also important. Then now articulating the stakeholders that will be involved is also important, like I've said. So you need to ensure that the problem is well captured, is really different from symptoms and the outcomes. In fact, also in setting up the agenda, you are looking at the present, effect of the problem on the economy. You are going to be looking at what policies can you, enact. What do you need to amend? You're also going to proactively look at the future impact of the problem on the economy. So if what you are facing right now, inflationary pressure now, you want to look at what it will be in the next couple of months, if not properly managed, what could be the effect of the problem right now with your international community, countries you are trading with, what will it be on your foreign exchange earnings and the likes of it. So you see, when I talk about problem identification as the bedrock, is important before you set up that agenda. A lot of these things goes into the pipeline before you see any public policy being enacted. So, and in setting up your agenda, definitely you're already evaluating the relevance of the problem. You're looking at the contextual background of the problem. Now, are you going to prioritize it? How should it be handled? I've said, who do you engage? The stakeholders, what effect will it have on them? Where the resources will be deploying, okay? And also deciding how the problem will be handled, okay? Should it be through legislation or regulations? These are those, deliberations that goes into the pipeline at this stage of problem identification and agenda setting. Just joining us, thank you so much for joining. The program is Policy Formulation and Economic Development on Amorgate Radio Communication I am Titilola Ogunshono. You have discussed extensively the first stage of public policy formulation, and that is problem identification and agenda setting. So now let's go on to look at the tools and methods of problem identification and assessment. There are tools that has been deployed and people, policy analysts keep deploying, but looking at one or two of these tools and methods. So for the sake of time, if you can take one or two, we'll go. So I'll start with the first tool that I'll be considering on today's episode, and that is the RCA, the root cause analysis. RWOT for root, CAUSE for cause, and definitely analysis, popularly known as RCA. I've mentioned earlier that problem identification and assessment, is very important. So it has to be done strategically, systematically. You need to collate data. So what do I mean by root cause analysis? This is the process of unraveling the root causes of problems in order to identify appropriate solutions. I told you that the first stage is your ability to capture adequately what the problem is, and went on to say that, look, we don't treat symptoms, not the outcomes. You need to find out the cause of the problem. It's when you can adequately identify what the cause is that you can talk of, preferring adequate solution. Now, the assumption of this RCA is that rather than treating just symptoms, it is more strategic and effective to identify and solve main causes of the problem or the challenge. The RCA involves a collection of principles, their techniques, their methods, that can be harnessed to identify the root causes of a challenge or a problem. And this RCA, the root cause analysis, is unique and has proven to be very effective because there are some of the tenets or the principles of RCA that once you apply, definitely is going to act as a guide towards identifying the root causes of any challenge or problem in an economy that can prevent an economy for achieving economic developmental goals. So let's look at the first principle of the RCA, is that the focus is always on identifying and solving root causes and not symptoms. You need to ask the right questions. We'll get there. I'll talk about the 5 whys. You need to ask the right question to be able to identify the root causes and not the symptoms. Let us put on the fire. But what is the cause? What ignited the fire in the first place? That is, digging deeper to what the real issues are. Now, the second one, the principle is, however, you should note that the symptoms can be treated for just short-term relief. Now, what I'm saying about RCA is not that you treat as the cause and you ignore the symptoms. Yes, the symptoms will be treated as any, like I gave an example previously, high level of inflationary rate is hyper. Inflationary pressure in the economy and is leading to, malnutrition. Yes, part of the causes you can treat malnutrition, but that's not the short-term relief. Until you deal with the root cause, you can have long-term impact. And when we talk about economic development, it's not something that is always achieved in the short run. It's long-term, it's strategic, it has long-term focus. And that is more sustainable. So let's look at the third principle. Now, in reality, why we use the RCA is that there could be cases of multiple root causes. Sometimes a particular problem that the society is not going to be a function of just one. The root cause might not just be one. It could come in various shades, various factors. This would help you. The RCA would help you to see the root causes. It might just not be one. If I look at the level of crime rate, for instance, in an economy, in an environment, might not just be economic factors. There could be social, cultural factors too. That will be the root cause. So when you are looking at economic factors, you better start considering family orientation, going back to the basic unit, the family unit of the society. That's the basic unit of the society, of any society. So the root cause might not just be one symptom. It could be economic factor, it could be technologically related issue. So that is what the root cause will help to identify if there are cases of multiple causes, root causes. But the truth is even if you have 2 or 3 case of multiple root causes, it cannot have same level of relevance or magnitude. So it could be more of, okay, economic factor could be 60% and social factor 40 or technological factor 35, as the case may be. But the reality and why people use the RCA when looking at problem identification, capturing effectively, it gives room to see the various root causes that could be behind any societal problem or challenge. So let's look at the fourth one. Now, when you apply one of the principles of applying the RCA is that your focus should be on how and why, okay, rather than who is responsible. So what the RCA does is that it takes away the blame game. So it's about issues, okay, not personalities. The RCA is not applied to say, oh, this particular unit dropped the ball. It's more about how did this happen? How did we get there? Yeah. How do we have this percentage increase in crime rates in the society? How do we get to the place where our people cannot feed well? How did we get here? How did we achieve, a grade 4 in our literacy rate? It's about how. How did we get there? So when you say the how did it happen? Was it over a 3-year period? What did we have spikes in a particular year? What is the trend? Then look at the why. Why did it happen? You now look at the various factors. Why did it happen? Are they to economic factors? Were they political factors, social-cultural factors, environmental factors, technological factors? You look at the why. So the focus, when you talk about the RCA, the beauty of it is not about who. We're not apportioning blame. There is more on issues, solid issues. The how did we happen? How did we get here? Over this trend, what is the trend? And why did it occur? What are the key factors responsible for this? Let's look at the fifth principle of the RCA, the root cause analysis, as a method of identifying problems and assessing problems, is that it must be conducted methodologically. It means that all root cause claims must be backed with concrete, solid cause-effect evidence. There must be evidence. If you say this is the root cause of this, you must have data to back it up. How are you sure? A drop in your literacy rate, give us the data. The region, the demographics, what was it before you did your analysis? What were your projections before you saw that as a challenge? It's evidence driven. It's not on gut feelings of policymakers. It's not on hearsay. It must be evidence backed. And of course, the sixth one is that when you have this, this evidence, the backed up evidence, you have the data, then you must be able to provide adequate information, okay, that will allow you to take any concrete course of action. There must be adequate information about it. And let me tell you, the beauty of any root cause, this root cause effect, is to prevent it from happening in future. It's not just to solve immediate problem, but to put structures in place so that you do not fall into that pit again, so that you do not have to solve that problem. So it helps you to build solid structures, so that you come up with policy that will not take you back to the problem you solved. It's going to take you forward. You don't fall into that pit anymore. So that's what's important. It's futuristic. You're looking at what it will be in the future. If this has been the trend, you want to drop, your literacy rate has dropped, you want to increase it, you want to go back to what it was a couple of years again, or what you are battling with today. So it's important that you must consider prevention of a possible root cause in the future. So wherever policy you are going to be enacting, once you are at this stage of problem identification using the RCA, you are doing it in a strategic way so that you do not have to come back in the next 24 months, 2 years, 3 years, 48 months, or the next 60 months, next 5 years to solve this problem over again. No, that's not strategy. If it's properly done at this point, you are supposed to solve it once and for all, and you are supposed to have considered, what you call the forecast, predict what could happen, and because of that, bring it in at this stage and set up the agenda, to formulate adequate policies that would enhance, economic developmental goals of any nation. Because of our time, I'll just consider one of the most widely used techniques under the RCA, the root cause analysis. Okay, and one of it is what we call, very simple, the 5 whys. Okay, it just means you ask the first why, the second why, the third why, the fourth why, and the fifth why. And it's assumed that before you even ask, sometimes two to maybe sometimes more than 5 whys, but sometimes you just need to ask two whys. Then you get your answer. You get the root cause of any problem or challenge. Okay, and sometimes you could ask more than 5, but it's popularly known as the 5 whys. So sometimes it's 2 whys, or the case may be more than that. Okay, so let's look at it. What it does for you, it helps you, at that stage to eliminate assumptions. You are digging further to know what the root cause of the problem is. So you can use it for anything. Let's try an example here. Okay, for instance, if I cannot honor my postgraduate admission in the US, United States, for instance, and I can't go, you can ask me why. Okay, that's my first why. Why are you not honoring, okay, your admission? You're supposed to go. So why are you not going? That's a challenge at an individual level. Okay, I could say, okay, I couldn't meet up with the payment deadline. And what you ask again, why didn't you meet up? Why couldn't you meet up with the payment deadline? So I could now go to say, okay, why I couldn't meet up? Well, because of exchange rate fluctuation, the volatility with the exchange rate, the naira to the dollar. Okay, so it comes back, you can now go, oh, that means exchange rate problem. So you could ask, why again? Why did you opt to keep your money in naira? Or what were the issues? Was there a percentage increase? So you see, from this simple example that I've given, you can see that when you ask the first why, the second why, you can see that the major issue was exchange rate volatility. Okay, and that's an economic issue, an economic issue, which speaks a lot to international trade, your balance of payment position. It speaks a lot to even foreign direct investment, your economy. It speaks a lot to developmental goals. It's going to affect your developmental goals. You can see from that simple analysis, asking the first why, the second why, got all the answer, and the problem in this case is exchange rate volatility. So it's simple. Okay, there are also other, widely used techniques under the RCA, but I will have to draw the curtain at this point. So on this note, I want to say a big thank you to everyone for staying tuned to the end of today's episode. Thank you for those who join us Monday through Fridays for our program, same time, 5 p.m. WAT, Monday through Fridays. They're also very engaging, very insightful, very interesting expository episodes on Amagate Radio Communications. If you have any feedback, comment, kindly send a mail to us at contact@theamagate.org. For your consulting needs, communication needs, you can check us up on our social media handles. Remember, it's Amagate on Facebook, Amagate on LinkedIn, Amagate on Instagram. So thank you so much, El. I would say, hope you join me same time next Friday on the same station, Amagate Radio Communication. I remain Titilola Ogushona saying bye from here, and do enjoy the rest of the day.